For a decade, the nights on Velmara had grown eerily still, as though even the wind dared not rustle the violet leaves of the colossal birch trees that ringed the royal citadel. High above the ancient spires, twin moons glowed in silent orbit, bathing the shimmering rooftops in a soothing lavender hue. Within the palace walls, however, not one soul found peace in that ghostly quiet, for there existed a burden, a heavy secret held in the troubled heart of Velmara's beloved heir. Princess Seraphis, with skin as pale as pearl and hair like silver starlight, had not tasted a true sleep for 10 agonizing years. Beyond the capital city, across vast plains where luminous vines coiled through the earth, and through forests thick with glimmering pollen, travelers spoke of the princess's plight in hushed, compassionate tones. Her insomnia was no mundane affliction, it was said, for all the known healers of Velmara had failed to break its dreadful hold. Mystics scoured ancient texts, technomages rummaged through dusty archives, and doctors from across the galaxy attempted every remedy gleaned from the wide tapestry of worlds known to humankind and beyond. Yet, still, she languished, trapped in a perpetual waking dream. In all those long years, the princess retained a serene composure that belied her suffering. She performed her royal duties, presided over the Grand Council, and held audiences with visiting dignitaries. Yet those who looked upon her in the hush of dusk saw the weariness behind her eyes, the slow trembling of her hands, the damp sparkle of tears kept in check by her regal discipline. Legend whispered that no being could ever truly grant her respite. Hope, so it seemed, was but a faint echo on the wind. Then came Dr. Nathan Cross, from the distant world called Earth. He was no mystic, no ancient sorcerer. He believed, as so many from his world did, in the power of science, in the indomitable logic of observation, experiment, and discovery. With an unassuming demeanor and dark, thoughtful eyes, he arrived upon Velmara with the single-minded intention of curing the princess's malady. He disembarked from the interstellar vessel at the bustling port, which hummed with bright lantern cargo trucks and fluttering banners. Word of his arrival spread swiftly. On Earth, he had carved a name for himself as a pioneer in neurological medicine, though he was, by no means, a man of flamboyant ego. Curious onlookers watched him walk briskly across the polished marble concourse, accompanied by a small retinue of diplomatic escorts. Tall, disciplined guards, faces concealed behind mirrored visors, guided him to a private levitating conveyance. As they sped toward the majestic spires of the capital city, Dr. Cross gazed in fascination at the alien environment, the teal grasses undulating in the breeze, the vibrant flora that shimmered with an almost sentient luminescence, and the alien creatures, big and small, that roamed the plains under Velmara's sun. Though he was a man of science, he felt a quiet reverence stirring within him, as though the planet itself vibrated with an ancient energy. Soon, he arrived at the palace gates, towering arches forged of luminous gold metal, overshadowed by sculptures of Velmara's founders, monarchs and guardians whose legacies whispered from the recesses of history. The palace courtyard thronged with courtiers in colorful, trailing garments, counselors wearing glowing pendants of rank, and robotic servitors that hovered seamlessly about. There was an air of solemn expectation. The doctor was greeted by Lord Rickard, the chamberlain of the court, who regarded him with a polite bow. "Velmara welcomes you, Dr. Cross," the chamberlain intoned, voice both gentle and grave, "for the sake of our beloved princess, whose affliction has plagued her far too long. May your worldly arts and steadfast determination find an answer where others have found none." Nathan responded with a thoughtful nod, carrying himself not with arrogance, but with genuine concern. "I have come as swiftly as I could, my lord," he said. "I will do all in my power. In the name of healing, in the name of knowledge, I shall not fail her." He was led through alabaster corridors lined with gilded reliefs depicting Velmara's storied past, of times when shimmering starships soared overhead in unison with the flight of great sky whales, of vast alliances, of tragedies averted and victories won. At length, they arrived in a softly lit antechamber that opened to the princess's private wing. The hush within those halls was thick, almost like stepping into a realm separate from the rest of the living world. And there, on a spacious divan draped in silken cloth, sat Princess Seraphis. At first glance, she seemed an otherworldly figure, tall, slender, the faintest tracery of azure veins apparent beneath her pale complexion. Her eyes, a deep violet hue, flickered with wary curiosity. In the wavering glow of overhead crystals, she rose to greet him, every movement graceful yet revealing a deep-seated exhaustion. "Dr. Cross," she said, her voice as soft as a breeze over still waters, "I have heard much of your accomplishments. You have my gratitude for traveling so far to offer me your help." Nathan approached, bowing with both respect and empathy. "Your Highness," he spoke, "I come with open mind and open heart. My methods may be rooted in science, but I understand that your condition may not be entirely understood through reason alone. I ask only for your patience and cooperation." A gentle nod was her reply, though the fleeting sadness in her eyes spoke volumes. She gestured for him to be seated nearby, and then, with a regal wave, she dismissed the other attendants. Once they were alone, the princess breathed a whispering sigh, as if momentarily letting down the formal walls of royal composure. "Tell me," she asked, her gaze fixed on him with quiet intensity, "what do you truly think of my affliction? Do you believe there is a cure hidden in your science?" He studied her a moment, letting the stillness settle around them. "I do not presume to know all the secrets of Velmara," he said gently, "but I do know the resilience of life. I know that if we keep searching, we can find some path back to health. Yet, I must understand everything that has been tried, everything that has been studied. This is the only way I can find a new angle. If you grant me leave, I wish to review every record, every prior attempt at aiding your sleep." She assented, calling for the chamber's automated archivist. It glided forward, a silent contraption made of rose-gold plating, adorned with luminous glyphs. At her command, it projected a library of archived documents into the air, forming ghostly shapes of medical data, scans, transcripts of old spells attempted by the galaxy's most powerful mystics, and the diaries of the princess herself. Nathan could only marvel as reams of knowledge hovered in midair, faintly glowing in a perfect grid. Thus began their days of tireless work. The princess, though prone to exhaustion, refused to leave him alone to the daunting task. They examined accounts describing every known remedy, from herbal concoctions to advanced neural implants. They uncovered rumored cures from the far corners of the Andromedan Federation, from hidden enclaves of knowledge on Earth, and from less orthodox traditions that spoke of arcane energies and cosmic alignments. Yet, every path described had led nowhere. The princess's system seemed immune to sedatives, resistant to the intricate neural therapies that had proven so effective on other worlds. Neither incantation nor chemical infusion could lull her to rest. As the hours turned to days, Nathan found himself equally captivated by the princess's intellect and fortitude. In her presence, he felt a growing admiration, tempered by the urgency of the mission. At times, the palace corridors echoed with quiet footsteps late into the evening, as the two of them continued to strategize. Though the repeated dead ends threatened despair, the princess's earnest determination staved off hopelessness. Then, quite by chance it happened. One evening, Nathan lingered in the princess's study, poring over data screens until his own eyes felt the pull of weariness. She, likewise, was reading old diaries of her ancestors, searching for any clue that might cast light upon her sleepless curse. Finally, the hour grew late enough that even the starlit skies beckoned them to rest. She escorted him to one of the palace guest chambers, a lavish room of sculpted columns and delicately woven tapestries, shimmering with threads that captured the moonlight. But on that night, a swirl of cosmic storms spread across Velmara's atmosphere. Sheets of electric blue lightning illuminated the windows, thunder rumbled in low pulses throughout the palace, and winds began to howl. Fearing for the occupants' safety, the palace guard insisted that the princess not be alone. Though it was not customary for someone beyond the royal family to remain near her private quarters in the middle of such a tempest, an unspoken sense of caution overtook them. That night, with the tempest raging beyond the palace walls, the princess guided Nathan into her parlor, which adjoined her bedchamber. They spoke quietly of the day's findings, carefully sifting through the puzzle of her insomnia. Yet even as the night crept deeper, The princess felt her usual sleeplessness creeping over her. She lowered herself onto a plush bench, her shoulders taut with stress. Nathan, out of genuine compassion, settled beside her, his eyes brimming with empathy. Before either of them realized what was transpiring, her eyelids fluttered and closed. It was subtle at first, just the droop of fatigue. Then, after a moment's hesitation, she sank against him, breathing deeply. Nathan watched, stunned by the realization that her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. For the first time, he saw the princess truly drifting off, lapsing into gentle slumber. In that space of quiet wonder, the hush of thunder seemed to fade into a distant lullaby, letting the marvel of that moment fill the air with something akin to the miraculous. An hour later, he gently roused her, not wishing her to awaken in confusion. She blinked in astonishment, just as the day's first light broke over the horizon. 10 years had passed since she had known a moment of such peaceful sleep. Though it was just a short interval, she felt more replenished than any time she could recall. In the hours that followed, this unexpected phenomenon became the talk of the entire court. Whispers abounded that Dr. Cross himself carried some unknown frequency or aura that calmed the princess's torment. Her physicians were called in haste to measure her brainwaves, scanning for anomalies or fluctuations in cosmic energies, but everything pointed to a singular truth. In his presence, she found slumber. Confounded by the strangeness of it, Dr. Cross proposed a series of careful tests. Over the next week, they attempted to replicate the conditions under more controlled environments. Whenever the princess tried to rest without him by her side, even in an adjacent room, she remained wide-eyed, trapped in her unending insomnia. But when he lay quietly at a modest distance, never overstepping decorum, an inexplicable tranquility enveloped her, and she drifted into dreams. The revelation rattled them both. For her, it was equal parts relief and profound wonder. For him, it was a puzzle unlike any other. He hypothesized that a unique biochemical resonance might be at play, perhaps something in the electromagnetic waves of his earthly physiology or a latent genetic trait that interacted with her alien biology. Yet no standard test could pinpoint the precise cause. In the meantime, the transformation in the princess's life was immediate. She gained enough rest to attend to her royal duties with renewed vitality, and her subjects were overjoyed to see the color return to her cheeks. A festival was held to celebrate what seemed like the beginning of her cure, with fireworks dancing across the midnight sky. Yet, with the cautious prudence of a scientist, Nathan Cross insisted on further examination, determined to understand how and why his presence had wrought such an effect. As the nights rolled on, he found himself sleeping on a small, hastily arranged cot, placed a respectful distance from the princess's canopied bed. Each morning, she awoke from a blissful slumber, short but restful, her eyes brimming with a gratitude she did not hide. Over the quiet breakfasts in her sunlit antechamber, they forged a kinship, a bond that transcended the roles of physician and patient. They spoke not only of her condition, but also of her childhood memories, her aspirations for Velmara, and her interest in Earth's many cultural wonders. He, in turn, shared stories of his earliest experiments, of his deep love for the pursuit of knowledge, and of his unwavering hope that no barrier could remain unsolved if approached with sincerity. In time, the skeptical gaze of the court began to soften. Even Lord Rickard, typically reserved and formal, found himself nodding approvingly at the sight of the princess smiling freely. But beneath the celebrations and the cautious optimism, there flickered another secret, something buried deep in the archives of Velmara's oldest histories. Though the planet's memory stretched far, some records had been lost or cloaked in the half-forgotten mysteries of ages long past. Within those fragments, an ancient prophecy whispered of a union, of two bloodlines that would merge at the appointed time to reawaken a mighty planetary shield that had once guarded Velmara from cosmic perils. Few dared speak of it openly, for fear of conjuring rumors or false hopes, but the echoes of that prophecy were stirring among the keepers of lore. And so it came to pass that a subtle tension arose between the newly kindled hope for Princess Seraphis's cure and the cryptic hints that deeper forces were at play. As Nathan continued his day-to-day companionship with the princess, an intangible current pulsed between them, weaving trust and curiosity into the beginnings of an unspoken bond. She took comfort in his presence not merely for the relief of slumber, but also for the genuine warmth he exuded, his quiet confidence that her torment could be undone. Yet, beyond the palace walls, not all eyes watched with goodwill. In the labyrinthine shadows of the city's underlevels, where neon gleams met the gloom of subterranean byways, hushed figures conspired. A rumor circulated that the princess's awakening from the nightmare of insomnia might herald a dreaded shift of power, that if she found permanent solace, it could fulfill an ancient star alignment prophecy. While many on Velmara yearned for the rumored planetary shield to be revived, a cosmic barrier that once protected not only Velmara but extended its benevolent energies to countless allied worlds. Others feared the repercussions. They worried that the shield's reactivation could disrupt certain clandestine dealings across the frontier or tilt the cosmic balance in a way that threatened their secret ambitions. Among those lurking in the darkness was Callus Thorn, a renegade from a star cluster notorious for weapon trafficking. He had quietly established an underground foothold on Velmara, supplying black market technology to unscrupulous factions. The reactivation of the Grand Planetary Shield would stifle his operations and unify the planet's defenses, effectively shutting out his black market empire. He vowed to prevent that from happening, no matter the cost. Rumors of Dr. Cross's uncanny connection to the princess reached Thorn's ears. Through bribed palace staff and stealthy infiltration, his spies learned of the princess's sudden ability to sleep at Nathan's side. They gathered that, indeed, some cosmic synergy might be in motion, something that threatened to awaken the fabled shield. Driven by greed and desperation, Thorn set his plots in motion. Soon, ominous happenings swirled around the palace. Hidden sabotage attempts, the infiltration of digital archives, and faint tremors of unrest among the populace. In the midst of these ominous events, neither Nathan nor the princess suspected the shadowy web slowly tightening around them. Rather, they focused on harnessing this strange phenomenon to craft a sustainable cure. One day, as they studied the ancient genealogical records, the princess stumbled upon a curious entry. It was a partial translation of a text older than the palace itself, detailing a heroic union between an earthling traveler and a Velmaran royal, centuries before Velmara had any formal contact with Earth. According to the text, their offspring formed a lineage said to be key to igniting a protective force known as the Shield of Ages, a planetary aura that had waned over the centuries. The passage read, in part, "When the blood of Terra meets the ancient line of shimmering starlight, a hush shall fall upon the troubled mind, and from that hush, an awakening. Thus shall the guardian shield arise, bridging heavens and hearts." A hush settled over the chamber when the princess recited the words. Nathan, ever the man of science, could scarcely believe it. While he acknowledged that there were cosmic mysteries aplenty, he wrestled with the notion that his presence on Velmara was ordained by prophecy. The princess's eyes glowed with awe. Though her logical side hesitated, she could not dismiss the tangible proof. At his side, she had found her first genuine sleep in a decade. In the days that followed, they uncovered more fragments of that dusty lore. The records spoke cryptically of a grand temple hidden in the Stormreach Mountains, where lightning storms raged perpetually. It was said that the temple held a dais or chamber designed to focus and magnify the resonance between the two chosen bloodlines. Combined with the princess's own lineage, descended from the ancient queens who once maintained the shield, and the earthborn traveler's presence, the temple could reawaken the protective aura, ensuring the planet's safety for generations to come. Nathan was torn between fascination and skepticism. "A prophecy," he murmured one night while the princess prepared to rest. "It may be real, or it may be mythic symbolism. But if it is real, could it be that you and I, by sheer chance, hold the key to renewing the shield?" She gave him a gentle smile, her eyes reflecting gratitude and curiosity. "Science and myth might not be enemies," she said. "Perhaps the prophecy is simply an ancient way of describing a cosmic phenomenon. It may be that we must delve deeper into what our bond can achieve, for if the shield can truly be revived, Velmara will see a new dawn of peace." Buoyed by cautious hope, they made discreet plans to travel to the Stormreach Mountains, an expedition that would require only a select few loyal to the crown. Unbeknownst to them, Thorn and his minions trailed their every move, determined to intercept any attempt to fulfill the prophecy. Late in the evening before their departure, the princess experienced a vivid dream, her first in years. She awoke with a startled intake of breath, her cheeks flushed with color. Nathan, roused by her sudden movement, found her looking out the window toward the distant mountains, where flashes of silent lightning rippled across the horizon. "I saw them," she whispered. "The ancient guardians, clad in silver and light. They stood around a dais of polished stone, waiting for something. I feel as though it was more than a dream." The expedition set forth at dawn. Nathan, the princess, Lord Ricard, and a handful of steadfast palace guards boarded a sleek sky cruiser, traveling across the rolling plains and over shimmering forests. The storm-reached mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks crowned by near-constant storms that crackled with swirling arcs of energy. In the old legends, these storms shielded the sacred temple from casual intruders. As the cruisers soared nearer, turbulence increased. Lightning arced in dazzling webs. The pilot navigated skillfully, yet the vessel lurched as if gripped by intangible forces. Finally, they set down upon a wide plateau, where the ground was scorched black from eons of lightning strikes. Towering pillars of rock, spanned by precarious stone bridges, reached into the stormy sky. A labyrinth of jagged stones and hidden alcoves tested their nerves. Arcs of static electricity danced over their protective gear. The princess moved with an air of regal determination, despite the swirling wind that tugged at her silver hair. Nathan stayed close, providing a steadying arm whenever the path grew treacherous. At last, they found a sheer rock face carved with cryptic symbols. Upon it rested a colossal gate, half buried by centuries of fallen stone. Each symbol glowed faintly, pulsing in sync with the flicker of lightning overhead. Lord Ricard, carrying a reliquary of old insignias, compared them with the shapes etched into the stone. The princess hesitated only a moment before pressing her palm against a prominent glyph shaped like an 8-pointed star. A resonant hum filled the air. Gradually, the gate slid aside, revealing a corridor lit by an otherworldly, bluish gleam. They ventured inward, torches and lamps illuminating walls lined with ancient ruins. The hallway seemed to spiral deep into the core of the mountain, leading them to an immense domed chamber that radiated an inexplicable energy. Stalactites of crystal dangled overhead, shimmering with cosmic potential. And at the center, as if waiting across millennia, stood a raised platform of polished stone, ringed by swirling patterns of inlaid metal. The dais from the princess's dream. Cautiously, they approached, awe etched into every face. Nathan felt the hair on his arms stand on end. Some unseen force, resonant and deep, thrummed through the air. Princess Seraphis stepped forward, eyes bright with resolve, while Nathan and Lord Ricard followed. For a long moment, they stood side by side, gazing upon this legendary sight. It was then that Thorn's ambush was sprung. With stealthy cunning, he and his mercenaries had slipped through the partially open gate, using advanced cloaking devices to escape detection. They aimed weapons at the expedition party, shouting commands in harsh voices that echoed unnaturally within the ancient chamber. "All of you, step away from that platform," Thorn roared, stepping into the glow with cold malice in his eyes. He was a tall, gaunt figure, wearing a battered exosuit that crackled with stolen technology. "You think to reawaken the shield and ruin my enterprise? I have invested too much to allow this foolishness. Drop any weapons, and cease your meddling at once." The princess drew herself up to her full height, defiance burning in her gaze. Lord Ricard and the guards braced, though they were outnumbered. Nathan, heart pounding, saw something primal in Thorn's eyes, an unyielding determination to maintain his illicit profits at the expense of an entire world's safety. "What you are doing endangers more than just Velmara," Nathan said urgently, trying to reason with the gunman. "That shield might protect an entire quadrant from cosmic threats. You would sacrifice countless lives for personal gain." Thorn sneered. "Idealistic nonsense. The galaxy is built upon commerce, power, and advantage, Doctor. I will not let a half-realized prophecy and a sleepless princess tip the scales against me." With that, The mercenaries took aim. Time seemed to slow. The princess, with astonishing courage, stepped forward. A swirl of luminous energy flared around her, triggered by the dais' latent power. Thorn fired a single shot. A crackling beam of greenish plasma streaked across the chamber, aimed directly at the princess's heart. Nathan Cross did not think, he acted. Throwing himself forward, he intercepted the beam. In that instant, the unexplained resonance linking him and the princess surged like a living force. A pulsating glow surrounded them both. Thorn's shot, instead of striking home, dispersed into a burst of sparks. The dais beneath their feet lit up with swirling lights, intensifying with each breath. A hush fell as the mercenaries stared in disbelief. Thorn blinked, uncertain whether to fire again or flee. Lord Rickard and the guards seized the moment. With disciplined efficiency, they engaged the mercenaries, disarming several and forcing others to retreat. Sparks flew, plasma bolts ricocheted, but the unstoppable synergy at the center of the dais loomed as a radiant spectacle, overshadowing the chaos. At the heart of the tumult, Princess Seraphis and Nathan Cross stood in mutual astonishment. The swirl of energy around them rose in brilliance until it seemed the entire chamber was awash in starlight. He felt her trembling hand slide into his as if guided by fate, and together they gazed upward. High above, the crystals in the domed ceiling resonated with deep, melodic tones, like the echo of chanting voices across centuries. Suddenly, a beam of light shot upwards through the mountain, piercing the raging storm. Outside, lightning parted, clouds swirled in a wide vortex, and a pillar of luminescence erupted into the heavens. The ground shuddered with an ancient awakening. Far from the temple, across plains, forests, and oceans, a great cosmic sphere shimmered into being around Velmara. The planet's newly reborn shield glowed with a protective aura, forming an unbreakable bond between sky and earth, bridging epochs of waiting with a single, resounding pulse. Thorn's mercenaries faltered, weapons shaking in their grasp as the unstoppable tide of energy overwhelmed them. In fear, they tried to flee, but the palace guards swiftly secured them. The entire mountain seemed to vibrate with majestic harmony. In that moment, Princess Seraphis and Dr. Cross both felt a curious certainty. They had awakened something that transcended mere legend. The prophecy was reality, manifest and shining. When the final flash of light subsided, the chamber fell into a hushed calm, broken only by the ragged breathing of the newly subdued mercenaries. Thorn, pinned to the ground by two guards, glared at the radiant dais in powerless rage. The princess, tears shimmering in her eyes, turned to Nathan. Though words seemed a paltry vessel for the enormity of her gratitude, she spoke from her heart, voice trembling with emotion. "You saved me," she whispered. "And not just me, but my entire world." Nathan, exhausted but relieved, managed a gentle smile. "It was never just me," he replied. "It was us, our bond, your lineage, and whatever cosmic design has woven our paths together." At that, Lord Rickard stepped forward, both amazement and humility etched upon his features. "Your Highness, Dr. Cross, Velmara owes you both an immeasurable debt." The guards echoed his sentiment, bowing in unison. Beyond them, swirling arcs of leftover energy flickered through the chamber, as though acknowledging the significance of what had transpired. With Thorn and his gang subdued, the group retraced their journey out of the temple and back to the cruiser. Overhead, the storm clouds lingered, but the fierce lightning had calmed into a muted, peaceful glow. Word spread across the planet that the ancient shield was reactivated, that the age-old promise of Velmara's guardians had been fulfilled. In the days that followed, the princess's ability to sleep steadily improved. It seemed that her insomnia had been, in part, an omen, her body refusing rest until destiny was set in motion. Now, though she still required Dr. Cross's calming presence nearby to fully sink into dream, there was evident progress. Where once her nights had been a prolonged torture, she now found hours of slumber. A new dawn of hope brightened her spirit. Meanwhile, the planet rallied around the newly manifested shield, forging alliances with other worlds who recognized that Velmara had reclaimed its mantle as a protector of the region. Diplomatic ties with Earth deepened, and Dr. Cross found himself an honored figure. though he insisted he was merely a doctor who had stumbled upon wonders far beyond his comprehension. One evening, the princess invited him to a private terrace overlooking the palace gardens. Fireflies of alien design flickered among the blossoming vines, and the warm night air carried the delicate scent of nocturnal flowers. She wore a flowing gown of pale lavender, reminiscent of Velmara's twin moons. He, dressed in formal but modest attire, joined her at a rail that overlooked the starlit grounds. She spoke quietly, but her voice was firm. "Nathan," she said, using his given name for the first time. "The past weeks have changed my life, my world, and so much more than I can put into words. The shield is restored, my mind is at peace, and the people are looking to me for guidance in forging a future as bright as the starlight overhead. Yet, none of that would be possible without you." He turned to regard her, seeing in her eyes both warmth and resolution. "It was a shared destiny," he said softly. "I only regret that it took your suffering to lead us here. But if I have helped you find rest, and helped Velmara reclaim its heritage, then that alone is worth any trouble." She reached out, allowing her fingertips to brush against his. "I want you to stay," she whispered, her eyes reflecting the glow of distant stars. "I know your world beckons, and I respect your duty as a scientist, but Velmara is now part of your story, and you are part of ours. Perhaps we can chart a path forward together." For a moment, he felt the entire expanse of the galaxy fall silent. He thought of Earth, of the colleagues who awaited his return, of the research that remained unfinished. Then he looked upon the princess, her strength, her compassion, the luminous possibilities shimmering in her presence. A gentle stirring of his heart answered before his mind could craft a formal reply. He took her hand fully in his own. "I'll stay, Seraphis, for as long as I can be of help to you and your people." She smiled, a tender expression that glowed with contentment. Together, they cast their gaze upon the horizon, where the twin moons rose in harmonious tandem, their soft light dancing upon the newly activated shield that arced across the velvety sky. Far away, the palace thrummed with celebration and relief. Lanterns of myriad colors adorned the balconies, while music of ancient flutes and modern instruments blended in reverent tribute to the princess's awakening from 10 years of sleepless despair. As time flowed gently onward, Dr. Cross found himself not just a doctor to the princess, but a respected advisor in the Grand Court. His scientific insights proved invaluable in bridging Velmaran technology with Earth's expertise. Joint research teams soon formed, exploring the next steps to strengthen the shield and apply its principles to other planetary networks. Under the careful eye of Princess Seraphis, a new era of interplanetary collaboration blossomed. The lore masters dug deeper into the prophecy's archives, discovering additional references that spoke of a cosmic synergy between Earth and Velmara, a synergy that might one day serve even greater causes. Nathan, straddling the line between the rational and the arcane, learned to embrace the mysteries that defied straightforward analysis. In the months that followed, his bond with the princess evolved with a quiet grace, hinting at deeper affections that grew whenever the moonlight mingled with stardust in her eyes. Though Callus Thorn and his mercenaries faced justice, pockets of resistance still lingered, as is often the case when old power structures are overturned. Yet the renewed shield proved a formidable deterrent to pirates, raiders, and black market cartels. Such threats still lurked at the edges of the cosmic map, but Velmara was no longer vulnerable or alone. Its neighbors, inspired by the restoration of the planet's legendary defense, began forging alliances that promised an age of unity and mutual prosperity. Still, the most cherished transformation of all was far more intimate. Inside her private wing, with starlight filtering through tall windows, Princess Seraphis drifted to sleep each night upon her regal bed, while Dr. Cross, on a nearby couch or sometimes in an adjacent room, maintained the resonance that safeguarded her dreams. Over time, the intervals of her restful sleep lengthened. Her doctors noted that her brain activity gradually stabilized, matching patterns seen in healthy Velmarans. Even without him in immediate proximity, she discovered she could nap for short spans. Nathan believed that as she healed, her body was recalibrating itself, retaining the memory of peace that his presence had initially sparked. From that vantage, The years began to stretch out with promise. Knowledge and wonder mingled in the new golden age of Velmara. Scientists from Earth visited to marvel at the living shield that encompassed the planet, gleaning insights that could one day protect other worlds. Artists composed epic poems and operas celebrating the union of science and prophecy that had saved them from the brink of endless night. As for Princess Seraphis, she continued her reign with a newfound radiance, aided by a most extraordinary man whose heart proved as pure as his mind was keen. Guided by love and mutual purpose, they turned their combined talents toward forging a brighter tomorrow, bridging worlds and possibilities that once seemed no more than legend. Where once her nights were haunted by the specter of insomnia, they were now a tapestry of beautiful dreams, dreams she shared with Nathan by dawn's first light, weaving hopes for the day yet to come. Under the watchful glow of Velmara's twin moons, Dr. Nathan Cross and Princess Seraphis came to embody the prophecy's promise that when two distant worlds converged, they might conjure a power as old as creation, tempered by compassion and guided by noble intent. In the hush between heartbeats, they discovered that destiny, though cloaked in starry riddles, could indeed be shaped by human hands and by love's tender grace. And so it was that they brought the grandest dream to fruition. No longer would Velmara's nights be plagued by the sleepless sorrow of its princess, nor would the planet's future be overshadowed by lurking threats. The shield blazed like a silent sentinel across the cosmos, a testament to their unbreakable bond. And in that gentle, final unveiling of fate, they stood side by side, content beneath the starlit canopy, secure in the knowledge that hope had prevailed and that the story, once bound by pain and myth, could close upon a page of happiness, readying itself for the promise of countless more chapters yet to be written.